Next up in my Los Angeles reading list is Bret Easton Ellis, Less Than Zero. The only other of his books that I have read are American Psycho, which was the first book of his I ever read, and then I can't remember if it was Glamorama or Imperial Bedrooms. Maybe White. Anyway, Bret Easton Ellis was 21 years old and still a student at Bennington College when he wrote this, when it was published, rather. He dedicates it to his writing teacher at the time, Joe McGinnis, and it really is a great accomplishment for a 21-year-old. At the same time, this announced a very unique type of writer to the world who kind of coupled that Raymond Carver minimalism with basically the mind and deeds of a sociopath. So we get hints in this book at what is to come by the time he gets around to writing the book that he's most famous for. All of his books pretty much are notorious, but that would be American Psycho. The role was crushed by Christian Bale. The book is very simple in terms of plot. Less Than Zero refers to an Elvis Costello song. Elvis Costello is on a poster in Clay's bedroom. Clay is the 18-year-old kid who is home in LA on Christmas break for 4 weeks from where he's in college in New Hampshire. And during those 4 weeks, he pretty much does nothing of any real worth. In fact, everyone around him is like 18, 19 years old, even younger, and everybody's doing drugs and going from this apartment for a party to this mansion up in the hills in, so-and-so's new BMW or so-and-so's new Mercedes or Porsche. It's a look at LA that has a lot in common with Nathaniel West. Its subject is announced right in the opening line. At the terminus of the opening line is Los Angeles. People are afraid to merge on freeways in Los Angeles. And this is something that Blair, one of many different paramours or flings or whatever, people he's had a relationship with. Blair, I guess there was the most substance there, but they don't even know what to do with it. All of these kids have lived life by the time they're 18, 19 years old, harder than, most 80s rock groups after 10 years of touring. And this offhand comment that Blair makes when she picks him up at LAX, that people are afraid to merge onto freeways, it sort of lingers and irks him and haunts him throughout the book. And I think that the reason that it does is because to merge onto a freeway is to take a deliberate action to go somewhere, to move from one phase of road or highway to another phase in a forward direction. And this is what everyone is terrified of. They won't say it, but they're all terrified. They don't know what to do. Everyone's parents are just gone. They're in Rome, or they're in Aspen, or they're in Palm Springs, or Tokyo, or I haven't seen them in weeks. I don't know where they are. To take a step forward or to merge onto a freeway and actually go somewhere is a horrifying venture to these kids. They're taking cocaine and then they're taking Valium to come down from the cocaine just to fall asleep, to MTV music videos that are flickering. MTV flickers all throughout the entire novel. Everything's just insubstantial. It's just superficial, surface. And the fact that it's written in the first person present is very effective to sort of bolster, to illuminate that ephemerality of everything that's happening. Though there are passages of italicized memories that are written in the past tense. And these memories are the only thing that keeps Clay, our main character, from being a complete sociopath. And it's interesting that his name is Clay, because clay, of course, is a substance that's very malleable and it's moldable, it's inert, it needs to be shaped by something. There's less and less connection, personal connection. There's less and less connection, interpersonal connection, as the novel goes on. And halfway through the novel, two very rare things happen, and they coincide and complement each other. First of all, it starts to rain, and it rains a lot, something that's very rare in LA, and Clay begins to cry. There's this character that shows up for just a few pages. Her name's Ronette, and she talks about how she had this dream where I saw the whole world melt. I was standing on La Cienega, and from there I could see the whole world, and it was melting, and it was just so strong and realistic like. So this is about halfway through the book, and it that bespeaks that apocalyptic feel, that doom, or that oblivion that we get in West. So I thought that if I like pierced my ear or something, like alter my physical image, dye my hair, the world wouldn't melt away. So still in that passage, it's the surface. It's her physical appearance. It's only the surface that can be thought of as a means to do anything about anything, even to stop the world from ending. Towards the end, Bret Easton Ellis sort of really turns it up a little bit. It does get a little tiresome. It got a little tiresome for me, just going from one party to another and all these names, and Julian's here and Trent's there, and we're going here to see Blair and catch up with this person. This person's a model. This person's in the movies, and it gets a little tiresome. There are moments where Ellis gives us these elements of people falling asleep in the movie theater. People can barely finish watching movies. They can barely finish eating the food that's on their plate. They're just so disconnected, so detached. But then finally, Rip, one of the characters, Rip, he says, if you want something, you have the right to take it. If you want to do something, you have the right to do it. There's this entitlement and this hedonism that's running rampant here amongst all these young people in LA. But Clay starts to press him, and he's like, well, what do you want that you don't have? Like, you have absolutely everything. And I mean, yeah, all these kids, their parents, they have everything. And this is a great moment in the novel. Rip replies, and he simply says, I don't have anything to lose. And that sort of sums it up, the feeling and the characters and the general atmosphere that Ellis is painting for us here. Clay is, at first, I kind of pegged him as completely inhuman and devoid of life. The only time that he was ever really interested in something was during, say, a violent movie or some kind of destruction. But then there's a moment between Clay and Blair where, she tells him, that basically, I'm used to guys not really being all there or present with me, but it's like you can't even try to do it. And this jostles him a little bit. And at the very end, he finally tells her, look, I don't want to care, because if I care about things, it'll just be worse. It's just another thing to worry about. It's less painful if I don't care. And so we start to see that there really is feeling. And that made me really think back on the whole book, because it's easy to just burn through this book and dismiss it as being mimetically insubstantial as the characters and the lives they live. But that line really threw a new light on the whole novel that I had just read. And I realized that despite all of the choices that they're making and filling their entire day with just one party after another and one substance after another, in the end, they are still kids, and they're a lost generation. And they do have memories of a more innocent time. They just simply don't have any direction or any real motive or incentive to do anything other than what they're doing. So yes, Bret Easton Ellis, his very first novel, Less Than Zero, and it's a great glimpse of what unlimited money and time and access to illicit things can really do.